Fresh Omnipod. Everything's going good. 106 and stable. Put a fresh one on my abdomen. So today's video is special. So with that being said, we'll get started right into it. Hey everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel, and it is the long-awaited Q&A that I promised to do a while back, and this is something I wanted to do to celebrate 200 subscribers. My original 100 subscriber surprise was to share my type 1 diabetes diagnosis story. So if you want to go check that out, feel free. If you want to know the whole background of how I came to find out that I had type 1 diabetes. But I decided for this time to do a Q&A, and I opened up my Instagram and Beyond Type 1 as an open concept for any of you that wanted to ask me questions. And I got about 14 different questions, and hopefully I'll hit everybody's question. If I didn't, I'm sorry, but I have screenshots on my phone because I asked in 2 different time periods just to make sure that everybody got a chance to ask a question if they wanted to. This allows you to get to learn a little bit more about me, maybe my perspective on diabetes, other random things about me. And now that I'm closing in on 300 subscribers, I just wanted to say thank you to all those who have tuned into my channel. I think that my channel is unique compared to a lot of other channels, although a lot of other type 1 diabetes channels are also super amazing. But I will explain later. Maybe one of the questions somebody asked me is why I originally wanted to start a YouTube channel. And I'll answer more of that as we get to the final question here. But let's get started. So they could be coming from either Beyond Type 1 or Instagram. I'm not going to say the person's name to keep them protected, and obviously the main focus is not who wrote it, it's what the question is and my response. So, question number 1 is, what was it like when you were first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes? Like, what was your thoughts is my question. So, like, my first thoughts when I was diagnosed and, the initial reaction, I was actually relieved. I did make a video on this way back at the very beginning of my channel, but seeing as though I have a lot of new people, it's probably a good idea to explain. So I felt relieved because I had all kinds of crazy symptoms that I couldn't explain. I thought that the peeing a lot, the drinking a lot, the weight loss was all like I was dying. Well, actually, in reality, if you would have let it go past DKA, the high blood sugars would have eventually killed me, and the lack of insulin. But I was just relieved to know that there was an answer, a fairly not simple, but basic answer as to why I was feeling like crap. And then, like, learning how to do the injections and stuff really didn't scare me. But, like, at the beginning, like, the honeymoon phase sucked, and I feel like learning, like, consistently to keep a routine and stuff because your body is still kind of getting used to being diabetic was the most difficult. But honestly, when I was first diagnosed, I was relieved. I wasn't upset. Like, one of the first things I told to the doctors that I thought you were going to tell me I was full of a terminal cancer and I was going to die. And because I'm so enrooted in faith and belief in God and Jesus that I totally believe that I have this disease for a reason, and that no matter what I go through in my life, no matter what trials and tribulations, through all the highs and lows, that I have God on my side, and that He's going to take me every step of the way, because I have this disease for a reason, and you all do too that have type 1 diabetes. You have this disease for a reason, and if you can instill that in yourself, it makes it much more relief and peaceful inside you that you can accomplish things with type 1 diabetes, and that you can get through the highs and the lows, and just show the world that they need to be more thankful for the health they do have, because living with this disease is a constant thing. It's a constant struggle some days, and some days you never get rid of it out of your head. It's like continuously it's on your mind, like, hey, what's my blood sugar now? Is it going up? Did I take enough for this meal? Did I properly carb count? Okay, what else could be affecting my blood sugar? I hope you guys kind of understand that. So that was the first question. This was a really good question, and thank you to the person who asked this. Question 2 is, have you ever considered looping or anything do-it-yourself like that? So first of all, for those of you that don't know what looping is, it's basically your own closed-loop artificial pancreas system where people have hacked into old Medtronic pumps, and now the old Omnipod Aeros pods can now be looped. Basically, You set up a program and then install it on your phone to where you'll be able to bolus from your phone, or an old Medtronic pump that's tubed. And basically, Loop allows, it automatically adjusts your basal rates based upon what happened. It's kind of like an artificial pancreas where, like, say I totally miscalculated carbs and I was actually eating a 65 carb meal and I thought it was 20, like a huge mistake. Okay, Loop would communicate with my Dexcom and say, oh, her blood sugar's headed up quick. Let's dump more background insulin to try to minimize that spike. And it would also automatically suspend insulin if it saw my blood sugar was trending on the low side to prevent a low. So the idea behind Loop is automatic artificial pancreas, where it corrects your highs before they become dangerously high and corrects your lows before they become dangerously low. Have I ever considered doing it? Yes, it has crossed my mind. Would I try it? Absolutely. Like I said, I am one of these people that I'm willing to try anything and everything to maintain normal glycemia. And I've heard a lot of really good responses from it. However, it's not for everybody. And as of right now, because I am on the DASH system, this has not been hacked into to be able to loop yet. If it ever got hacked into and I was able to do it, would I? I might try it. Just like with anything else, there is risks. People say, oh, it's so risky and stuff. Well, yes, but did you know that every time you give yourself a shot, you're taking a risk? Every time you do this with insulin in your body, you're taking a risk. Every time that you do something different with an insulin pump or whatever, you're taking a risk every day with your life as a type 1 diabetic, because we are given the most potent and strongest, most dangerous hormone or drug to mess with, because too much insulin can kill you and too little can kill you. I would definitely not be afraid to try Loop, because I think it more mirrors closer to what a non-diabetic's pancreas does in response to different foods and different environmental triggers. As of right now, an insulin pump comes close. However, if I want to dump more background or I want to prevent a low, I have to tell the pump, hey, suspend my insulin. Hey, crank up my insulin. Whereas Loop automatically does that for you. I wouldn't be afraid to try it. That's for sure. I'm not against it, but as of right now, in my diabetes stage, I'm not going for it, because obviously I don't have the old Omnipod system. And number two, I'm just getting comfortable with the idea of an insulin pump. Maybe in the next 6 months, maybe if somebody figures out how to make the DASH system loopable, I wouldn't be afraid to try it. I would gladly do it. I mean, there's no different than people that restart their sensors, or no different than those of you that have tube pumps that leave your insets in for more than 3 days. You are running a little bit of a risk, but in the long run, it probably isn't doing a whole heck of a lot of damage, if that makes sense. And people that do Loop are not waiting for the FDA to clear an artificial pancreas, and I don't blame them. We all do things that aren't really approved. We all don't change our lancets like we should. Sometimes we don't wash our hands or clean a site like we should. You're taking a little bit of risk, but I don't think the risk is that dangerous, if that makes sense. So I'm not against it, but as of right now in the stage of my diabetes journey, I'm not ready to do that. But maybe in 6 months if somebody figures out how to hack the Omnipod DASH. So great question. Number 3. Favorite emoji, favorite animal, favorite color, favorite season, favorite Netflix show. Okay, this is an all favorites thing. So, favorite emoji, I would have to say my favorite emoji has to be, this is a new one for the iPhone, because I have an iPhone, so those of you might not have it, but I like the party one. I think this is kind of neat. I really like the party emoji where, like, it's celebrating and it's got the hat and the confetti or whatever with the I can't, like, the things you blow on. I can't think of the names. Favorite animal, I'm a cat lover, but if it had to be a wild animal, if I could be like any wild animal, I am into like I really like elephants and giraffes. I think they're kind of neat. But as far as like a domestic animal, I'm wholeheartedly a cat person. My favorite color is blue, and I also like purple. Those are my top 2, but blue is obviously like my top favorite. Favorite season, I like all the seasons, but I definitely enjoy, I like all this, like I said, I like all the seasons, but if I had to pick one to live in the whole entire year, it would be spring. Just because, like, fall, you're starting to get bare trees and it kind of looks boring. Summer can get too hot or too muggy, and winter can just get too brutally cold. So if I had to pick one season, it would be spring. My favorite Netflix show right now is Anne with an E, which is based off of Anne of Green Gables. I think they're coming out with the third season. I absolutely love that show. It's so fun and neat to go back into the past and see kind of how they've taken a book and turned it into a Netflix original TV series. The fourth question is kind of a multi-part question again. So, favorite healthy snacks, favorite cheat snacks, best or worst advice that you were given. Favorite healthy snacks would be anything that has to do with like raw vegetables, fruits. I like the lower carb crackers and stuff. Healthy snacks, I just like a lot of healthier things, but if you consider like cheese and hummus as healthy, I like those kind of things. Avocado toast, anything with like vegetables and fruits, I'm game for as far as healthy snacks. Favorite cheat snacks, I'm definitely a chocolate. I eat so much chocolate. Like the other night I had a bag full of M&Ms, pretzel M&Ms for dinner, bolused appropriately for them. But I definitely like to cheat on chocolates. Sometimes I like I eat a lot of popcorn, if you want to call that a cheat snack. Sometimes I'll eat like the Cheez-It snacks or like the cheddar Chex Mix. I absolutely like binge on those types of things. But as far as like junk, I don't really eat a lot of junk. I do eat a lot of ice cream, if you want to call that a cheat snack too. But I just kind of eat whatever I want. Best or worst advice I was given. The best advice I've ever been given, and it's a lot of you have been given this, is just to take one day at a time, because worrying about tomorrow is not going to make a difference of what's happening today. Focus on in the moment, and you're only going to make your life, I guess, more at ease and more peaceful again, because why worry about something that's probably not going to happen tomorrow? Not saying you can't plan in advance, but you have to take one day at a time and understand that we could be here one day and gone the next, and that life is short and life is precious. The worst advice I've been given, I don't really know. I feel like I've never really been given bad advice. I think I've been given advice that really wouldn't apply to my life. As far as like actual people saying, here, do this and this will help you. No. I've never been told to go jump off a cliff and hope you live, or anything like nutty like that, or anything really crazy. So I think that answers that question, and we'll move on to question number 5. Do you think type 1 diabetes has given you a different outlook on life? By the way, I love your videos. Thank you so much, first of all. And yes, I feel like I appreciate life more in general now than I ever used to, because when you have type 1 diabetes, your relationship with everything changes. Your relationship with food changes. Your body changes. You have to be more willing to love the scars, love all the different marks on your body, because you've been injected and poked and prodded so many times that you're just like, that's now part of you. I feel like I'm more appreciative of the tools and technology I'm able to have access to. I'm more appreciative that I can get up in the morning now and do certain things. I'm more appreciative that the littler things like exercise and stuff that really can make a difference in your health. I'm appreciative that I can go out and buy healthier foods that help me control my blood sugar, whereas like some people can't. I'm just more appreciative of life in general. I feel like because my life was almost taken away from me last year, that I just feel like every day is a gift, and that every day is a blessing, because no matter what, as a type 1 diabetic, like, we take risks every day, and we could be here one day and gone the next, just like anybody else, I guess. But I feel like because we hang our life in the balance and put our life on the line every single day because we're trying to be a pancreas, to me is incredible. And to me, like, I had never realized how strong of a person I can be until I was diagnosed with this disease. And if you have type 1 diabetes, you are strong, because we constantly have to be poked and prodded and questioned, and we constantly have to be thinking what happened before, what's happening now, and what's going to happen in the future. Diabetes just doesn't go away. There's no cure. There's no remission. There's no reversing at this point for type 1 diabetes. So I feel like you become better at organization. You become better at just appreciating what you do have and not griping about the things that you don't have. Because now when I eat food, it's like I'm so thankful that I can have this food on my plate and that I can eat it, because I know there are some people that can't. I'm thankful that I can go out and buy insulin and I have insurance, whereas I know some people are struggling to pay for their insulin and they're rationing it and they're killing themselves and damaging their body, and it saddens me. And just being thankful that I may not have the best stuff, but I do have stuff that gets me through, and that I have family and friends that care about me a lot. And yeah, so I think that kind of answers that question. I've just embraced that I have mortality. I've embraced that as a young person. My life was almost taken away from me. And as sad as it sounds, a lot of you were diagnosed probably younger, but even if you weren't, you feel that, like, yes, my life was nearly taken away from me, especially if you were in DKA like me, or really high blood sugar to the point where it could have, like, put you in a coma or damaged your organs. You definitely feel like, yes, I'm going to die someday, and I just need to embrace what happens today, because tomorrow might not come for me. The sixth question is, how involved is your immediate family in your day-to-day diabetes care? Do you share Dexcom readings? Have they altered the way they eat? Make different food choices? Help count carbs? So, first of all, I do share Dexcom readings with my dad, but the only alert he has as of right now that I'm aware of is when I go urgently low. If I go below 55, we usually just shoot a text and he'll ask me either if Dexcom is not working properly or if this is truly an urgent low, and I usually tell him, false, or yes, I'm low. And Dexcom, obviously, that's something I'm going to talk about, is Dexcom does a pretty horrible job at picking up when you treat a low blood sugar, especially the G6, and just to kind of communicate that way. So I do share Dexcom readings with my dad. As far as my mom is concerned, she does not have a smartphone. I've been trying to push her to get one, only because I think it would make her feel more comfortable knowing that, like, hey, Maddie's sugar is stable and not going anywhere, or, oh my gosh, she's really high, I hope she took care of it, or something. But, like, if any of my family asks me what my blood sugar is, like my mom, what's your blood sugar at, or how's your sugars doing, and I won't lie about it, I'll just be like, it's high or low or not good. But I definitely feel like my mom and my dad now recognize, like, if my blood sugar's out of whack, they can tell, especially my mom. Like, if I'm, like, laying on the couch not responsive or very tired or moody, she'll be like, I know your blood sugar's high. Is it high? I said, yes, it is high. But as far as, like, giving me shots and stuff, my parents never gave me a shot ever. They all know how to use glucagon in case I were to pass out in an emergency. As a matter of fact, I probably should reteach people, my immediate family, like, how to use it, because I haven't reviewed with them in a while, and it'd probably be a good idea for them to know in case something were to happen. Again, as far as, like, altering the way that they eat, no, because I didn't really alter the way that I eat. I'm just more mindful of what I am eating, if that makes sense. Like, I still eat anything and everything I want. I'm just more mindful of the portion size. I'm mindful of counting carbs. I'm mindful of, like, hey, this situation resulted in a low last time, so let's not try to result in a low this time. Or this situation resulted in a high last time, let's not let it result in a high again if we can help it. But sometimes my mom's like, count the carbs in my meal, and I'll just, like, count them, and she's like, well, is this less or more than what you're eating? And I'm like, well, that's actually a little bit less. And I thought that was, like, kind of funny that, like, my mom's so into, like, the carb counting and stuff. And sometimes I'll just, like, randomly ask her, like, she goes, do you want this? I'm like, sure. And I said, what does the bag say for carb count? She goes, 13 chips is 15 carbs. Okay. And then that would be the end of it. And I totally trust her to, like, not lie about the carbs or anything. But, like, as far as, like, management, I'm pretty much, like, managing myself, because I know, like, my parents and a lot of my family and friends know my personality is very meticulous and very on top of things, and I'm not going to let things get out of handle. I've always been, like, in school, I've been meticulous about doing my homework. I never was told to go brush my teeth. I was never told to go take a shower, go to bed, get your homework done, do this, do that, do this, do that. I was never told that. I just did, because I was always responsible from a pretty young age. So I feel like my parents have a good feeling that I am responsible enough to take care of type 1 diabetes. But as far as, like, talking about diabetes and, like, if they want to know things, I'm not against them not knowing things, but I definitely don't feel like they've pushed me to, like, yes, we want to control you and control your management and stuff. They just kind of let me do what I need to do, and stuff like that. And sometimes like my dad and I will talk more about the scientific stuff behind it, whereas like mom and I will be like talking more emotional stuff, or how it impacts my emotional stance, or like how high blood sugar affects this, or how high blood sugar affects that. So I hope this answered this question well. So I would say my parents are involved, but they're not to the point where like they're making decisions for me, and they're not continuously babysitting my Dexcom and all kinds of stuff like that. So I hope this makes sense, and we'll move on to the 7th question. Question 7 is, would I rather be without the Omnipod or Dexcom? I would rather be without an Omnipod, because to me, I could dump my insulin pump any day, because to me what's more important is knowing where my blood sugar is and what direction it's heading. I can manipulate my insulin dosing with any type of insulin treatment you're going to give me, whether it's shots or a pump or inhaled insulin. I will find a way to keep my blood sugars normal. And I could easily dump my insulin pump, but I will never give up Dexcom, because to me it is so much more important to know what my blood sugar is than it is to have something automatically administer insulin for me with the push of a button. Number 8 is the worst thing about the Omnipod. I don't really know what's the worst thing, like I talked about in my Omnipod review video. Like, the worst thing about the Omnipod, I would have to say, is like, I would have to say, like, for the dash system, I don't really like the PDM. It's too touchy. I've had too many problems with it. But now that I've got a new one, it seems to be working good, which is fine and dandy by me. But, I guess the worst thing about the Omnipod is, like, if you're trying to take off clothes and you have it on, like, your arm or your leg, and you go to take off, like, as a lady, if I go to take off my bra and it gets snagged, I'm just like, oh, there's something there, and I'm like, oh, it's my Omnipod, and I gotta quick go over it, because I'm like, I don't need to rip an insulin pump off, because they're not cheap. So I guess that's the worst thing about the Omnipod, is if you put it on an appendage, it is kind of a little bit bulged out, and if you go to take clothing off, it might get snagged on it. Number 9, would I ever go back to MDI? Yes, I would not hesitate to go back to MDI. However, because of my career and my college standpoint right now, it would be very inconvenient, because we're not allowed to have like certain things in clinic and stuff. Now that I am currently working with the accommodations team at my college to make sure that, like, hey, if I have a dangerous high or dangerous low, that I can be excused out of like that clinic setting to go treat it. Or if I have to take so much time out of a test to treat a dangerous high or a dangerous low, that I get that time back. But as of right now, I don't foresee myself going back on MDI unless something really royally screws up with Omnipod, or I have too many problems with high blood sugar, or too many problems with low blood sugar, or I feel like I'd get better stability back on MDI. I wouldn't hesitate to go back, but as of right now, I'm comfortable on the Omnipod. If I did go back to MDI, though, I will not go back to taking Lantus. I have had too many problems with it burning, leaving bruises, leaving lumps under my skin, and I used to have this purpling on my toes, and ever since I've stopped taking Lantus or Glargine or Basaglar, I have no longer have this purpling on my toes. I would sooner switch to Levemir or Traceba, because I heard you get more stability out of them and they last a little bit longer. So if I had to go back on shots, I would ask to be put on either Levemir or Traceba. I would not want to go back to Lantus. Next question is, did you know anything about type 1 diabetes before I was diagnosed? This is a really good question. I knew, like, I had 2 family members with it. My dad's sister and my dad's brother's son, so a cousin and an aunt. And I knew, like, they took insulin and had to check their blood sugar. And I know my cousin for a while had an insulin pump and all this and that. But I really didn't understand. And I knew it wasn't like diet induced. That's like the only thing I didn't know, is like it's not their fault. I didn't know exactly what happened. Like, it's antibody related and all that for the most part. I knew a little bit, but I didn't know that, like, how extensive it actually is. Like, it's not just food and insulin that impact your blood sugar. I didn't even know, like, there was different kinds of insulin that you had to take. And I didn't understand, like, that, if you exercise, that impacts your blood sugar a lot. If you have hormonal problems, it impacts your blood sugar a lot, or you're on your period. I didn't understand that, like, different foods affect your blood sugar a lot. Like there's things that are more high glycemic than others. I just knew like they had to watch sugar intake, but I didn't know sugars and carbs were, I knew carbs were from science classes that carbs were sugars, but I didn't understand that like they had to count total carb until I became a diabetic myself. So I knew a little bit, but I didn't really know a heck of a lot, and I thought it was just something really basic and easy, like you just had to take shots and take insulin and watch your food, and that was about it. But I definitely knew that it wasn't their fault and stuff, and I didn't know that, like, I knew eventually when I was diagnosed that I could get on an insulin pump, but I had no clue there was such a thing as a continuous glucose monitor, till my endo team talked to me about one, and I'm like, she's like, you're gonna like be wanting this Dexcom, and you're gonna go on it, and you're gonna love it. And I'm kind of like, I ain't going on no freaking CGM. And now I'm like, yeah, let's go for the CGM. Like that's amazing, and it's helped me so much. And I would sooner have the CGM than the insulin pump. So I was educated, probably more than somebody who has no clue about diabetes, but I definitely wasn't like fully educated, if that makes sense. And it probably helped that I knew a little bit only because I had a family member. 2 family members that have it. So this question is kind of a detailed one, and maybe I'll delve into this more later, but this person asked, would it be possible for a type 1 diabetic who has had numerous complications to care due to high cost of medical supplies sue the Senate and win? I don't know about sue. I'm not into all the like legal stuff, but I feel like there definitely needs to be something that needs to change, because nobody should have to be skipping rent or skipping groceries or skipping basic life necessities because you have a medical condition that is not your fault. You shouldn't have to be rationing your supplies and putting your life and your health at risk because you have type 1 diabetes, which is an irreversible autoimmune disease, not your fault. I don't know if we could sue the Senate, but I definitely do feel like the more we push the government to make some changes, or the big pharma or insurance companies to make changes, the better. I do know that like there's a liability thing, at least at endo offices and insurances, and if you don't follow their guidelines or you go out of their, if like, say like I had a low blood sugar, really bad low, and I wanted to sue my endo team, then they're all up in ante about the money and all that stuff. But would it be possible to sue the Senate? I don't know if you can directly sue the government. I have no clue on that one, but I do know that you can sue doctors for malpractice. You can sue probably an insurance company for malpractice or fraud, like insurance fraud, or falsified information, or false policies. You probably can sue them, but I don't know if you can sue the Senate. But I think the best thing we can do right now is keep striving on social media, keep making things like me, making YouTube videos, get things public, write to senators, talk to your local representatives, and explain that diabetics and insulin should be totally covered. I feel like if as a type 1 diabetic, or as a diabetic in general, that insulin should be free. Insulin should not have to be paid for, because no matter who you are, if you're non-diabetic or not, you need insulin to survive. Whether or not it comes from your own pancreas is a different story. So insulin should be free or very, very cheap, to the point where anybody could afford it. Now, if you're talking things like pumps and stuff, I can see why they want you to pay for those, because there's a little more of a luxury. But for basic stuff like syringes and insulin, that should be all covered. If you want the basic stuff, and test strips, that should be all covered. And if you want a CGM or you want a pump, like, yeah, then pay a little bit for it. That's my opinion, because they do have to make their money somewhere, you guys. But as far as the basics to survive as a diabetic, and particularly as a type 1, being able to prick your finger and check your blood sugar and have access to insulin and some sort of insulin pen, needle, or syringe should be all covered, or very, very minimal to you. So great question. Very hard to answer, but I hope I did a decent job. What is the scariest diabetic situation that I've been in? So, scariest diabetic situation. Now, I have only been diabetic for a year, so I haven't really had a lot of scary situations. But the scariest situation I had been in was with my scariest low blood sugar, When I had Chinese food, it took 7 units of insulin up front, when in reality I only should have took half of that up front. I was still on injections at that point. So I had all this food packed in my stomach, and no matter how much I ate or drank, the blood sugar was like having a hard time coming up. And then when it finally rebounded, it rebounded hard. But it was to the point where like my blood sugar was dropping like 5 or 10 points every 5 minutes, and it got into the upper 30s. And I was to the point where it was starting to scare me, and I thought I was going to have to pull out glucagon. And thank God I didn't. Thank God something happened, or I had an angel watching over me, that my blood sugar just went up. And I literally thought in that moment, and I was praying to God that, yes, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die now. This is not going to be good. But I literally thought diabetes, type 1 diabetes, was going to kill me. And this is why I think we need to have a cure. Because beyond just dealing with diabetes, it doesn't really bother me. But what bothers me is that sometimes you're put into pretty dangerous situations. And, you know, I definitely know I properly dosed myself for that meal, but I took too much up front. And I had Lantus in the muscle that day, and there was a few other factors that contributed to that low blood sugar. But still, there's got to be, we need to have a cure so that we don't have to sit and worry about, hey, oh my God, like, I put myself in a dangerous situation, or, oh no, not this again. But that was probably the scariest situation I've ever been in, was like, obviously like the lowest, scariest low blood sugar. And also like when I was first diagnosed, like that was kind of freaky, because I thought I was going to die. And when the doctors told me I was hours from a coma, that kind of freaked me out a little bit. And then I had no fluid in my body. That's what really freaked me out, and that my kidneys were shutting down. But I would say the scariest diabetic situation I was in was with my low blood sugar. That happened about a month and a half ago. And basing off that question is another question: have you ever been so low that you barely function? That was my lowest blood sugar I ever had, was like an upper 30s. I know a lot of you have had worse. I wouldn't say I felt like I wasn't functioning, but I definitely felt like my eyes were starting to get blurry. I was getting really anxious. I mean, I was holding my head like this, like I didn't want anybody around me. I was just kind of like panicking, and I wouldn't say barely function. Like I could still move and stuff, but it was almost like an adrenaline rush at that point, because when you're low, like your heart starts pounding faster, and your body actually will release adrenaline in anticipation and hopes to get your blood sugar up. But sadly, as a type 1 diabetic, because we have synthetic insulin that's running against us, it almost kind of impairs our own liver to release stored sugar. So that's why we have to carry glucagon with us. And, you know, the fact that my eyes were starting to cross, and that I was starting to get slurred speech, was kind of scaring me a little bit. But as far as like being able to physically do stuff, I felt like I could still do stuff even though I was shaking. But I definitely felt like I was in a brain fog, if that makes sense. Like, functioning physically, I felt okay, but like mentally, I was like gone, like bye-bye. Like I wasn't there mentally whatsoever. So this is a really good question too. And the final question is, why did I decide to start a YouTube channel? So first of all, I always wanted to start a YouTube channel even before I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes last year. But now that I have type 1 diabetes, I felt like I wanted to share my experiences for other people to learn off of me. And I feel like my channel is unique more in the sense because I've pretty much literally started my channel only 3 or 4 months after I was diagnosed. And because I take a more scientific side to diabetes, where I'm reading articles and reading scientific things and applying more scientific experiments to my own management, that I feel like makes my channel unique, and that I put a lot of time and effort into researching and making videos for you guys that are high educational and highly serious. And sometimes they're funny, because I think you guys probably get a kick out of me talking in front of a camera. But because I'm more into like experimenting and using scientific background and my scientific knowledge that I have learned and that I love to learn about into incorporating to my diabetes management, I think that's what makes my channel unique. And I feel like it's only made me a push to continue making videos, because I feel like I have a lot to offer that a lot of other people can't. Not saying if you're a type 1 diabetes YouTuber, you do fantastic. And I give anybody credit who starts a YouTube channel to begin with. But if you're a type 1 diabetic YouTuber, It takes a lot of guts to sit down in front of a camera and share your blood sugars, share your stories, share your emotional scars, all the different things that you talk about. It is very, very hard to talk about some days, to sit down in front of a camera. It takes guts. It takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage and a lot of guts to sit down and talk about this stuff. And I did this to help you guys, but it also helps me in the long run because I can look back and see how much I've grown. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of doing these videos. I get a lot of enjoyment out of interacting with you guys, and I feel like because I'm a social person, I get to interact with an amazing community like you guys and just share with everybody who has diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and people that don't have diabetes, to let them have a glimpse into a life of a type 1 diabetic, because it's very, very hard to understand what we go through unless somebody kind of explains it. And I just did this to help people in general, and I enjoy the more artsy side behind it and the editing and all that stuff, but I feel like this channel was designed to help you live your best life despite living with an autoimmune disease like type 1 diabetes, and that you can do anything you want. I'm going for the career I want. I want to have kids. I want to be married. I want to see it all and do it all before I pass from this earth. And I hope to capture that for you guys. And I also wanted to capture other things. Like my dental hygiene experience, different fun things I do. Because I like to do other things beyond diabetes. And I feel like making YouTube videos is like doing a scrapbook. And I hope to show this to my kids someday and my future family. And just, I know a lot of my family also watches me that I don't get to see a lot. And it means the world that I'm probably connecting to them. They feel like they're interacting with me, and I feel like I've built a community that I've been able to interact with you guys, and I just feel like because the way I manage diabetes, I can show you that, and you can learn from me, and the beauty of it is you can learn from me, and you can learn from other people that have YouTube channels and Instagrams and all kinds of stuff, because we all have a purpose on this earth, and we all have things and talents and times that we can share with each other. So I hope this answered this question, and I hope you enjoyed this Q&A for celebrating 200 subscribers. I plan on doing something for 300 subscribers. If you have suggestions, let me know. And I hope this video gave you an insight as to more of what I'm like in diabetes management and some other random things about me. So, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. And until next time, 4 more videos. Take care. God bless. Be kind. Spread positivity. And be thankful. Bye, everyone.